Before revelation reaches the world, it always begins with a whisper, soft enough to be missed by the distracted, yet powerful enough to awaken the soul that still listens. That whisper is not born from sound or language. It arises within the heart when silence finally replaces noise. It is the voice of truth preparing to speak once more after ages of being buried beneath the weight of confusion and pride. The book of truth, sealed since the beginning of time, carries within it this eternal whisper, a reminder that divine wisdom was never lost, only waiting for the right moment to be heard again. Humanity now stands on the edge of that moment, when the silence before the storm begins to tremble with meaning. From the dawn of creation, divine truth has guided existence like an invisible thread, holding the universe together with perfect order. Yet as centuries passed, humanity drifted from this harmony, pursuing knowledge without reverence and power without wisdom. In its search for mastery, it forgot the sacred simplicity from which life first emerged. The book of truth was sealed not to hide revelation, but to protect it, for knowledge revealed before understanding would only destroy what it sought to enlighten. Now the world, weary of deception and division, begins to hunger once more for the purity of what was lost. The whisper grows louder, not in thunder or fire, but through the longing in human hearts ready to remember. Every era has carried signs that truth was not gone, but waiting. Prophets spoke of it in symbols, poets felt it in dreams, and the faithful sensed it in moments of deep stillness. Each fragment of revelation across time has been like a spark preserved for this generation, a generation surrounded by endless information yet starving for meaning. As confusion deepens, that spark becomes flame. People begin to feel an inner stirring, a call to return to something ancient yet new. The whisper is not calling to the intellect alone. It speaks to the soul's memory, awakening the part of every person that still remembers the voice that spoke light into existence. Those who pause long enough to listen discover that truth does not shout. It invites. It calls not for fear, but for recognition. The divine does not compete with the noise of the world. It waits until the heart grows quiet enough to hear. This whisper does not demand faith. It draws it forth naturally, like a flower turning toward the sun. It teaches that revelation is not forced upon humanity, but received by those humble enough to seek it. The seal upon the book begins to loosen each time a soul chooses honesty over comfort, stillness over distraction, surrender over pride. The storm that approaches is not destruction, but awakening. It is the shaking that comes before restoration, the cleansing that precedes light. What has been hidden is ready to be revealed, not as punishment, but as mercy. Humanity stands before a divine invitation to return, to remember, to rediscover the truth that has always been written upon its heart. The whisper before the storm is the promise that love has not forgotten its creation. The question is not whether the book will open, but whether humanity will be ready to read it when it does. If you feel the call to seek deeper truth and wish to walk this journey of revelation with us, remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video if its message speaks to you, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your reflection might inspire someone else who is listening for the same whisper. Silence once covered the heavens like a vast ocean, deep and immeasurable, where divine intention waited patiently for creation to listen again. The world had grown restless in its own noise, filled with countless voices competing for attention, yet few could hear what moved quietly beneath the surface of existence. When the time of awakening approached, that silence began to tremble, not with thunder or with fire, but with a living sound that stirred the soul from its long sleep. The voice that breaks the silence is not a sound that passes through the air. It is a presence that stirs within the deepest part of being, where truth has always dwelt, waiting for recognition. Human hearts had grown accustomed to confusion, mistaking the loudest for the truest, the strongest for the holiest. Prophets and teachers arose through generations, some speaking with sincerity, others with pride, yet few carried the weight of eternal truth within their words. When the divine voice finally breaks its silence, it does not enter through the gate of intellect, but through the quiet doorway of humility. Only those who have been emptied of certainty can receive the fullness of revelation. The voice is both tender and firm, a sound that neither compels nor pleads, but simply is, carrying an authority that no earthly power can imitate. A single moment can awaken centuries of longing. When truth begins to speak, time itself bends to listen. Mountains and nations may not move, yet the unseen world shifts as every spirit feels the vibration of that word. Those who have sought meaning in the noise of the age find themselves drawn to stillness, for they sense something calling beyond the ordinary rhythm of life. The voice speaks differently to each listener, revealing not new information, but forgotten understanding. It does not speak to the mind in riddles, but to the heart in remembrance. Every act of divine communication carries both revelation and invitation. To hear the voice is to be reminded of origin, to feel once again the echo of the breath that gave life. Yet hearing it demands courage, for its sound confronts illusion and tears away comfort built upon falsehood. It asks humanity to look beyond appearances, to question the structures that pride has built, and to rediscover the sacred simplicity that lies beneath every act of creation. Many will resist it, fearing what truth will require of them. But those who allow it to penetrate their hearts begin to awaken from spiritual amnesia. Through the ages, people have sought proof of the divine in signs and wonders, expecting heaven to shout its message across the sky. Yet revelation has always come quietly, hidden within the soft spaces of the human soul. When prophets of old heard the word of God, they did not receive it in the storm, nor in the fire, but in the gentle whisper that followed. That same whisper returns now to a generation desperate for clarity, asking not for recognition, but for attention. The voice that breaks the silence seeks not applause, but response, the willing surrender of hearts that have grown weary of deception. In every generation, a few have listened and responded. They have heard the call not with their ears, but with their being. When they speak, their words carry a strange weight, not their own, but the echo of something infinite. These are the messengers of the new dawn, not chosen for status or strength, but for their readiness to hear. Through them, the voice continues to move, reminding humanity that truth is not lost, only hidden behind the walls built by fear. Each listener becomes part of the transmission, for the divine message spreads not through volume, but through resonance. No empire, no institution, no human authority can silence what has been set free once more. The voice will find its way through the cracks of every hardened system, through the wounds of every soul that still aches for meaning. It does not shout, yet it shakes foundations. It does not command, yet it awakens obedience born of love. The silence that once guarded the secret now becomes the space through which the word is born again, unbound and unstoppable. Every awakening begins with listening. When humanity learns once more to pause, to quiet its restless pursuit of noise, the divine voice will be heard everywhere. In the rhythm of the wind, in the stillness of night, in the unspoken connection between hearts. The silence is no longer empty. It has become a vessel filled with the returning sound of truth. The seals of revelation begin to loosen, not by force, but by the simple act of listening. And through that listening, the book of truth begins to open. Beyond the limits of material sight lies a realm of divine memory, where every thought, every act of love, and every whisper of purpose is recorded in light. The ancients called these the scrolls, not of paper or parchment, but of living energy, flowing like rivers of consciousness through creation. Each soul carries within it a reflection of these scrolls, an imprint of eternal design that connects all beings to their Creator. To awaken to this knowledge is to realize that truth was never lost to time. It was written within the soul itself, sealed until the heart is ready to remember. Humanity has long searched for wisdom outside itself, building temples, libraries, and schools to preserve fragments of revelation. Yet every sacred text, every teaching of prophets and sages, points inward to a greater record, the divine script written within the Spirit. These hidden scrolls are not symbols of mystery for the elite. They are the inheritance of every living being. They speak not in human language, but through intuition, conscience, and the quiet movements of the heart. When one begins to listen with the inner ear, the scrolls unfold, revealing guidance not imposed, but remembered. Every moment of clarity, every deep sense of purpose, every act of selfless love draws light from these hidden records. The soul begins to recall who it is, why it came, and where it belongs. This is the great unveiling of identity, not as an isolated creature, but as a participant in a vast divine story. Those who awaken to the reality of these scrolls realize that they are not bound by chance or fate. They are guided by a plan written before the world began. The discovery of this truth restores meaning to suffering, direction to chaos, and faith to despair. Through ages of darkness, humanity forgot how to read the language of the Spirit. The scrolls remained sealed, not because they were taken away, but because eyes, trained only on the material, could no longer perceive their glow. When truth becomes measured by logic and evidence, the light of revelation grows dim. Yet when humility and wonder return, the soul begins to perceive again. The scrolls of light are not studied like a text. They are lived like a song remembered from childhood, a melody that grows clearer the more it is embraced. Those who have glimpsed even a fragment of these scrolls speak of light that feels alive, that moves and breathes as if aware of being seen. The illumination reveals not only divine mysteries, but also the truth of one's own heart. To encounter such light is to be transformed, for nothing false can remain in its presence. The hidden scrolls do not merely reveal information, they restore purity. Every deception, every distortion begins to dissolve, leaving only what is real. When humanity rediscovers this sacred connection, a collective awakening begins. The knowledge found within the hidden scrolls is not meant for isolation, but for unity. Every individual carries a fragment, and only through sharing, compassion, and understanding can the full picture emerge. The Book of Truth is not one volume held in heaven. It is the sum of all awakened souls, each bearing a page of divine light. The seals upon these scrolls break through love, not through intellect. The one who forgives, who heals, who chooses truth even when it costs comfort, unlocks a portion of that sacred record. Every act of goodness is an opening, every honest prayer a turning of the page. The more humanity learns to live in harmony with divine intention, the brighter the light becomes, until what was hidden begins to illuminate the entire world. And so the mystery unfolds, not as an external revelation descending from the clouds, but as an inner remembrance rising from within. The hidden scrolls of light have always been here, waiting to be read by those who dare to look beyond appearances. When the heart becomes still and pure enough, the words of eternity begin to shine once more, guiding the world toward what it has long forgotten. The truth was never absent, only veiled by the blindness of forgetfulness. History is filled with brilliance and ruin intertwined, the story of humanity striving toward light while falling repeatedly into shadow. From the earliest days of the garden, deception has walked alongside truth, whispering promises of freedom while weaving chains of illusion. The greatest enemy of revelation has never been ignorance, but pride, the belief that creation can possess the wisdom of its creator. That ancient lie still moves through every age, dressing itself in new forms, yet carrying the same seed of rebellion that once turned paradise into exile. Across centuries, truth became buried beneath layers of interpretation and control. What began as divine simplicity was transformed into complex systems of power, where the few claimed authority over the many. Religion, politics, and philosophy became mirrors of human ambition rather than reflections of divine purity. Those who sought to guard truth often ended up concealing it. Those who claimed to serve the light sometimes dimmed it with their own shadow. The deception of ages grew not from malice alone, but from the slow corruption of intention. Every civilization has been tested by this tension between truth and falsehood. When wisdom becomes a tool of domination, when faith becomes performance, when love becomes transaction, the deception deepens. Humanity begins to worship its own understanding, bowing not to God, but to the image it has created of itself. The result is spiritual blindness, a condition in which people can no longer tell light from imitation, purity from glamour. The more brilliant the illusion, the more convincing it becomes. False prophets and teachers have always found their place in this confusion, offering comfort instead of transformation, pleasure instead of truth. They speak in ways that flatter the ego, telling listeners what they wish to hear rather than what they need to understand. The world, hungry for hope, yet resistant to sacrifice, welcomes their message. Deception thrives in the soil of desire, and in every generation it grows into new forms, shaping beliefs, systems, and ideologies that promise enlightenment while leading away from it. Modernity has refined this deception into art. Technology, ideology, and entertainment now shape perception more powerfully than any temple or pulpit once could. Humanity has learned to simulate truth, to create images of goodness, beauty, and wisdom that captivate the senses while starving the spirit. The illusion of knowledge has replaced the pursuit of wisdom, and the constant flood of information drowns the quiet voice that once spoke from within. The deception has evolved, but its essence remains the same: to make humanity forget its divine origin. Yet even within this darkness, the spark of discernment remains. Those who seek sincerely begin to see the cracks in the facade. They feel the emptiness behind the noise, the dissonance in a world that praises progress while losing purpose. This discomfort becomes the first step toward awakening. The deeper the deception, the greater the longing for what is real. Truth begins to stir again, not through institutions, but through individuals whose souls refuse to be satisfied with imitation. The breaking of illusion is often painful. To see the world as it is, stripped of its masks, is to confront the weight of collective blindness. Yet only through this confrontation can freedom begin. The book of truth cannot be opened in a heart still clinging to falsehood. Every generation must face its own deception before it can receive revelation. Humanity stands now in that very place, surrounded by brilliance, yet starving for authenticity, speaking of peace while waging unseen wars within the soul. And so the call resounds once more, urging hearts to awaken and eyes to see beyond the glitter of false light. The deception of ages has woven its net with skill, but truth, once revealed, cuts through every strand. What was buried beneath pride and confusion begins to rise again, not as accusation, but as invitation. An opportunity to return, to remember, to seek what was lost beneath centuries of noise. The time of unveiling draws near, and those who recognize the difference between illusion and light will stand ready to receive what has been sealed since the beginning of time. Amid the noise of confusion and the spreading shadows of deception, a quiet movement begins to stir within hearts, untouched by the corruption of the age. It does not rise from positions of power or from voices that command attention, but from those who have remained faithful through silence and suffering. These are the ones who never stopped longing for what is real, whose hope endured even when truth seemed buried beneath centuries of falsehood. They are scattered across the earth, unseen and often misunderstood, yet united by a divine thread that connects their souls to the source of all light. The awakening of the remnant begins not through collective uprising, but through the intimate whisper of remembrance, a call that cannot be ignored once heard. Every remnant soul carries the mark of endurance, forged through trials that would have broken others. Their lives are shaped by a quiet perseverance, an inner strength that does not depend on recognition. While the world celebrates ambition and appearance, they have learned to find value in faithfulness, in the unseen obedience that grows in secret. Through heartbreak and solitude, they have been prepared for this moment, refined like gold through fire. Their pain has not been wasted. It has been transformed into clarity, stripping away illusion and pride until only truth remains. As the spiritual storm intensifies, these awakened souls begin to sense each other across great distances, as though drawn by an invisible current of divine purpose. Their unity does not depend on creed or denomination, for what connects them lies deeper than doctrine. They recognize one another not through words, but through the resonance of light that surrounds a heart anchored in truth. This recognition becomes a silent gathering, a spiritual communion that crosses borders and generations, forming the living body of those chosen to carry revelation into a weary world. Preparation for such a calling is not easy. Every remnant must first confront the shadows within their own heart, facing the remnants of fear, doubt, and ego that cling to human nature. The process of awakening demands surrender, for only an emptied vessel can hold the fullness of divine wisdom. When the voice of truth calls, it demands not performance but purity, not eloquence but authenticity. Many who once believed themselves strong will falter, while those who seemed insignificant will rise with a quiet radiance that no power can extinguish. A remnant is not chosen because of worthiness, but because of willingness. Their hearts remain open when others close theirs, their ears attentive when others grow numb. They are often misunderstood, even rejected, by the very world they are called to heal. Yet this rejection only deepens their compassion, for they know that the blindness of others once belonged to them as well. Each act of kindness, each prayer spoken in secret, becomes a seed of transformation planted in the unseen field of eternity. When the seals of truth begin to break, the remnant are the first to perceive the shift. They feel the vibration of revelation before it manifests, sensing both the burden and the privilege of carrying divine knowledge. Their task is not to boast of revelation, but to embody it, to live as living messages of what is to come. The world will not always understand them, and many will oppose their light, but their endurance becomes a testimony that truth cannot be silenced once it takes root within a faithful soul. As this awakening spreads, courage begins to replace fear. The remnant learn to see suffering not as punishment, but as purification, and every loss becomes a doorway to deeper wisdom. They are not immune to pain, but they no longer see it as defeat. Their joy comes from obedience, from knowing that even in the midst of chaos, they serve a purpose written long before they were born. When humanity grows weary of deception, when the false lights begin to flicker, the presence of the remnant will shine brighter. They will not lead through force but through example, showing that truth does not need to shout to be heard. Their faith will draw others out of despair, awakening the hidden longing that still dwells in every human soul. Through them, revelation finds its vessel. Through their faithfulness, the book of truth begins to speak once more, not as distant prophecy, but as living reality unfolding within and around them. Prophecy has always spoken in symbols, for divine truth cannot be confined to human language. The image of the seven seals reveals both the mystery of history and the journey of the soul. Each seal represents a moment of unveiling, a step in the great process through which creation awakens to divine order. These seals are not merely cosmic events or apocalyptic signs. They are reflections of inner transformation, stages of revelation that unfold both in the world and within every heart that seeks truth. When the first seal opens, awareness stirs from slumber. The soul begins to feel the pull toward its original purpose, like a sleeper awakened by a distant call. This is the stage of recognition, when one realizes that life is more than survival or ambition, that beneath every moment lies a deeper reality waiting to be seen. The breaking of the first seal brings both wonder and discomfort, for awareness exposes emptiness. The illusions that once satisfied no longer hold power, and the search for meaning begins. The second seal opens through conflict. Once truth has been glimpsed, the falsehood within and around must be confronted. The soul learns that revelation is not peaceful at first. It divides light from shadow, purity from corruption. Inner wars arise as the old self struggles to maintain control, while the new self seeks freedom. On a collective scale, this seal manifests as turmoil, when societies wrestle with truth that challenges their foundations. Yet even this unrest serves a purpose, for only through disruption can renewal begin. When the third seal opens, discernment is tested. Humanity faces choices that reveal the state of the heart, to pursue comfort or to pursue truth, to feed the body or to nourish the spirit. The measure of value shifts, exposing greed and selfishness as obstacles to divine order. This stage calls for balance and humility, reminding every seeker that revelation is not possession but participation. Those who learn to walk lightly through this passage find themselves freed from the bondage of material desire. The fourth seal ushers in confrontation with mortality. Death, both literal and symbolic, becomes the teacher. Humanity is reminded of its dependence upon the eternal and its fragility without it. This seal brings awareness of consequence, stripping away arrogance and awakening compassion. To face death is to see life clearly, for only in the shadow of impermanence can the light of eternity be fully appreciated. Many resist this lesson, yet those who embrace it emerge transformed, no longer driven by fear, but guided by wisdom. When the fifth seal opens, a cry rises from beneath the altar, the cry of the faithful who have suffered for truth. It is a moment of remembrance when every act of sacrifice is gathered and honored. The souls of those who endured injustice are seen, not forgotten, and their endurance becomes a foundation for what follows. This stage speaks to the triumph of integrity, the proof that truth cannot die even when silenced. Every tear becomes a seed of renewal, every wound a doorway through which divine mercy flows. The sixth seal brings revelation of magnitude. The structures of the world tremble, both physical and spiritual, as hidden realities come to light. False systems collapse under the weight of exposure, and what once seemed immovable begins to dissolve. Fear grips many, for change of such scale shatters the illusion of control. Yet this unveiling is not destruction, but purification, preparing creation for the final stage of awakening. The shaking of the world mirrors the shaking of the soul, both undergoing the same process of refinement. When the seventh seal is broken, silence returns, not the silence of absence, but of fulfillment. It is the stillness that follows revelation, when all things align with divine order and the mysteries once concealed are understood through experience rather than theory. The seven seals, taken together, reveal not only the destiny of the world, but the inner journey of humanity. What was sealed until the appointed time is not a secret meant to frighten, but a pattern meant to guide. As each seal opens, the world moves closer to its true reflection, and the soul moves closer to the heart of its creator. Every revelation demands response, for truth once seen cannot remain abstract. The fire of purification begins where revelation meets resistance, consuming what refuses to align with divine reality. This fire is not punishment, but mercy, the gentle yet unrelenting process through which all that is false is stripped away. It burns not to destroy, but to heal, not to wound, but to renew. In its light, everything is revealed for what it truly is. Gold shines brighter, impurities vanish, and the essence of the soul emerges uncorrupted. Humanity often fears the purifying fire, mistaking it for wrath. Yet those who have walked through it know that its flame carries love deeper than comfort. The pain it brings is the pain of healing, of shedding what no longer belongs to truth. Every heart that desires to walk in divine light must pass through this refining. Old attachments, hidden motives, and unhealed wounds rise to the surface, demanding acknowledgement. Nothing can remain hidden, for purification exposes even the subtlest shadows. Nations, too, undergo this process. When corruption has spread too far, when justice is forgotten, and compassion dismissed, the purifying fire moves through societies to cleanse what has decayed. It comes in many forms: crisis, revelation, upheaval, not as cruelty, but as correction. The structures built upon deception begin to crumble, so that what is enduring may stand. Humanity often calls these times disasters, yet to the eyes of the Spirit, they are signs of renewal. The fire also moves within individuals who have received the call of truth. It refines motives, sharpens vision, and purifies intention. The soul learns to distinguish between emotion and conviction, between faith born of comfort and faith born of surrender. Those who embrace the flame emerge radiant, their words carrying weight because they have been tested. The world recognizes something different in them, a peace not dependent on circumstance, a clarity born of having faced the consuming light and survived. No transformation occurs without sacrifice. The fire demands that pride be laid down, that self-sufficiency give way to trust. For many this feels like loss, yet what is lost was never real. The more one resists the fire, the longer the pain endures. The more one yields, the swifter the freedom comes. This is the paradox of purification. Surrender becomes victory, and emptiness becomes fullness. Communities that submit to this process find themselves reborn. What once divided them loses its power, for the fire melts away pretense and reveals the shared essence beneath. Forgiveness flows naturally when purity replaces pride. Through collective purification, humanity begins to rebuild, not from ambition, but from alignment with divine purpose. What rises from the ashes of old systems carries integrity, humility, and compassion, qualities that no empire of deceit can counterfeit. Every soul touched by this flame becomes a bearer of light to others still afraid to enter it. Their lives testify that purification, though painful, leads to freedom. They become living altars, their existence a quiet offering of truth. The fire that once seemed destructive reveals itself as the very breath of creation, restoring harmony where confusion once reigned. When the purification spreads far enough, both individually and collectively, the world begins to shift toward renewal. Shadows lose their grip, and hearts once hardened by fear become tender again. Humanity begins to see with clear eyes, no longer through the distortions of pride and fear. The fire of purification once feared is recognized as the instrument of divine mercy, the necessary passage through which all creation must pass to recover its original brilliance. As truth begins to awaken within the world, a rival illumination rises beside it, shimmering with deception so convincing that even the wise may hesitate before it. This false light does not appear as darkness, for darkness no longer deceives in its pure form. It comes clothed in beauty, compassion, and promises of unity, echoing the very language of truth while concealing an emptiness at its core. Humanity, weary of conflict and hungry for hope, turns eagerly toward this imitation, believing it to be the dawn it has long awaited. Yet what glows with borrowed brilliance cannot endure, for imitation draws its life from the very truth it seeks to obscure. False light emerges subtly, appealing first to emotion rather than spirit. It offers comfort without transformation, belonging without accountability, and knowledge without humility. It flatters rather than corrects, telling each soul what it wishes to hear instead of what it must face. This light teaches that peace can be achieved without repentance, that love can exist without sacrifice, and that divinity can be attained without surrender. It seems pure, yet it lacks the refining fire that distinguishes the genuine from the counterfeit. The rise of this false brilliance marks a critical moment in humanity's story, a test of discernment as great as any trial that has come before. Many hearts, untrained in spiritual perception, will embrace this counterfeit illumination because it so closely mirrors the real. Its teachings speak of harmony, but the harmony it offers is built upon the suppression of truth rather than the acceptance of it. It urges humanity to silence its conscience, to reject absolutes, to reshape moral law into personal preference. Under its influence, virtue becomes relative, and deception disguises itself as enlightenment. The false light spreads not through force but through seduction, drawing countless souls into its glow, where they find comfort but lose connection to the divine source. Beneath its surface lies the oldest temptation, the desire to be one's own God. This is the core of false illumination, self-exalted above surrender, intellect elevated above wisdom. The voice of imitation whispers that truth lies within human invention alone, that creation needs no creator. It takes the language of love and drains it of reverence, takes the form of spirituality and removes its essence. Its followers become convinced that they have transcended faith, not realizing that what they have embraced is faith in themselves, detached from the life-giving current of divine reality. Those who walk in genuine light will feel the tension between the two worlds growing sharper. The false illumination thrives in compromise, while true light exposes and divides, not to destroy but to purify. As this division widens, many who once appeared faithful will drift toward the easier path, preferring the comfort of acceptance to the challenge of integrity. The cost of standing for truth increases as deception tightens its hold upon collective thought. Yet the faithful remnant, purified by the previous fire, will recognize the difference not through intellect but through resonance, for their souls know the sound of the true light when it speaks. Every age of revelation brings with it an age of imitation. When divine truth begins to unfold, deception rises to mimic its appearance, hoping to confuse and scatter those seeking awakening. This counterfeit spirituality may even perform miracles, achieve unity, and inspire admiration, but it cannot produce transformation that lasts. Its fruits, though sweet at first taste, turn bitter in time. Genuine light humbles, false light inflates. Genuine light frees, false light binds in subtle dependence. The world will marvel at the seeming power of this imitation, but its brilliance will fade as quickly as it rose, for it feeds on illusion rather than life. The task of discernment becomes the defining challenge of this generation. To see beyond appearances requires stillness and honesty. True light does not demand worship of systems or leaders. It leads every soul toward personal communion with the divine. False light, by contrast, centralizes power, urging devotion to movements, ideologies, or charismatic figures. It replaces spiritual freedom with collective conformity, disguised as peace. Those who can sense the difference will stand as beacons amid confusion. their clarity exposing imitation by its inability to produce lasting peace. As the false illumination spreads, humanity faces a choice that reveals the state of its heart. One path offers ease, abundance, and acceptance. The other calls for humility, sacrifice, and faith. Many will choose the former, believing it to be love's natural expression, yet only those who walk through struggle will understand that love without truth becomes sentimentality, and truth without love becomes cruelty. The divine light alone holds both in perfect harmony. Those who cling to it, even through misunderstanding and rejection, become vessels of authenticity in a world entranced by imitation. Deception always overreaches itself. The false light, confident in its triumph, will reveal its emptiness through its fruits. The more it promises unity, the more division it breeds. The more it claims enlightenment, the more confusion it spreads. In its collapse, many will awaken with sorrow, realizing too late how easily comfort disguised itself as truth. Yet this sorrow will not be without purpose, for even through deception, the divine plan works toward redemption. The exposure of falsehood becomes itself a revelation, a necessary contrast through which genuine light shines all the brighter. Hidden within every sacred word ever spoken lies a mystery older than language, the living essence of identity itself. The revelation of the true name is not the discovery of a sound or syllable, but the unveiling of presence, the recognition of the source as more than concept or doctrine. Humanity has long sought to define the divine through titles and traditions, yet each name given by human thought reflects only a fragment of what cannot be contained. The true name is not spoken by lips, but revealed in the transformation of the heart, where the eternal and the finite meet in communion. When the time arrives for this revelation, the soul perceives that the name is not something external to be learned, but something internal to be remembered. It was written within every being before birth, a seal of belonging that identifies the spirit as part of its creator's essence. This remembrance does not come through intellect, but through awakening. It is experienced as recognition, an inner knowing that transcends words. Those who encounter it feel their separateness dissolve, for to know the name is to experience union, the realization that existence itself is the echo of that sacred vibration. Throughout history, prophets and mystics have spoken of this mystery in symbols. They understood that to speak the true name without transformation is to speak it in vain, for only purity can hold its resonance. It is not a word to be possessed, but a presence to be inhabited. When the heart becomes aligned with divine will, the name reveals itself naturally, flowing through thought, word, and action as harmony rather than noise. The bearer of this revelation no longer seeks to command power, but to serve as its vessel, knowing that true authority is born of surrender. Revelation of the true name restores what was lost when humanity chose independence over intimacy. Separation created fear, and fear created misunderstanding. The divine was cast into distance, worshipped as mystery, but rarely encountered as reality. Yet the name has never left creation. It has only been forgotten beneath layers of distortion and doctrine. When remembrance begins, love replaces fear, and reverence replaces superstition. The Creator ceases to be an idea to defend and becomes a presence to dwell within. This awakening does not elevate humanity to godhood. It restores humanity to its rightful relationship with the divine. Knowing the name is not claiming equality, but returning to harmony. It teaches that true power is not domination, but alignment, not control, but participation in the eternal flow of life. Those who live in awareness of this name become instruments through which divine intention moves freely. Their actions bear the fragrance of purity, their words carry healing, and their presence brings peace that transcends understanding. Many will seek this revelation for the wrong reasons, hoping to wield divine power for personal gain. Yet the true name hides from those who pursue it through ambition. It cannot be spoken by lips unpurified by humility, nor can it dwell in hearts divided by pride. The revelation of the name comes as gift, not as conquest. It is granted to those who desire not mastery, but communion, not recognition, but transformation. The more one surrenders, the clearer it becomes. The more one clings, the more it retreats into silence. To live under the revelation of the true name is to become reflection of divine character in the world. Every act becomes prayer. Every word becomes witness. Every breath becomes worship. Those who bear this awareness carry peace into conflict and light into despair, not through effort but through presence. The name speaks through them, not as command but as melody, reminding creation of the harmony it once knew. Through them, the scattered fragments of humanity begin to recognize their shared origin, their shared belonging to the same eternal source. Revelation of the true name also brings responsibility. To know is to embody, and to embody is to serve. Those who receive this awareness must walk in integrity, for their lives become living testimony to the reality they have encountered. Hypocrisy cannot coexist with such knowledge, for the light of the name exposes every shadow. Yet this exposure is mercy, a continual purification that deepens intimacy. To carry the name is to live transparently before heaven and earth, guided not by fear of failure, but by love for truth. As the true name begins to resound once more across the hearts of those awakened, humanity feels the stirring of remembrance. Languages and religions may differ, yet beneath them flows the same current, the same vibration of divine presence calling creation back to unity. What was once divided begins to converge, not through human systems, but through spiritual recognition. The revelation of the true name does not erase diversity. It sanctifies it, binding all things together in harmony under one reality, the eternal source that was, is, and will always be. When the final veil begins to lift, creation breathes as if remembering its first dawn. Every fragment of history, every sorrow, every prayer whispered in the dark converges into one moment of illumination. This is not an ending, but a revelation. The age when truth, once sealed and guarded by mystery, flows freely once more. Light spreads not as a blaze of destruction, but as a wave of remembrance, touching every heart prepared to receive it. Shadows do not resist. They simply dissolve, for darkness was never the opposite of light, only the absence of it. Humanity stands at the threshold of restoration, seeing clearly for the first time what it has always been meant to behold. Reality itself transforms beneath this radiance. Time, once linear and heavy, begins to bend toward eternity. The boundaries that once divided heaven and earth blur until they meet in seamless harmony. The world no longer trembles beneath fear or corruption, for truth has purified what deception once held captive. Knowledge becomes wisdom, power becomes service, and faith becomes vision. The divine plan, hidden since the foundation of the world, unfolds in its fullness, revealing that every loss, every silence, every unanswered question was part of a greater symphony leading creation back to its source. Souls awaken to their original purpose. They remember that they were not created to conquer, but to coexist, not to possess, but to participate in the flow of divine life. The burdens of guilt and separation fall away as the awareness of unity takes root. Humanity learns again to see divinity reflected in every face, every element, every breath. The cry of creation, once filled with longing, transforms into praise. The curse of isolation ends, replaced by communion that transcends form and language. This is the age where knowledge and love become one. Nations no longer rise against one another, for the illusion of separation loses its hold. Power based on fear collapses under the weight of compassion. Systems built on deceit give way to cooperation born of truth. The wisdom once hidden in the Book of Truth becomes the foundation of a renewed world, not written in sacred temples alone, but in the hearts of those who have embraced the divine light within themselves. Every soul becomes a living testament to the truth that once was sealed until the end of days, now unbound and alive. Humanity no longer seeks truth as something distant or external. Revelation becomes an ongoing experience woven into the fabric of daily life. Work becomes worship, art becomes prayer, science becomes wonder. The artificial divisions between the sacred and the ordinary fade, for all existence is recognized as an expression of divine creativity. The smallest act of kindness reflects eternal order, and every choice made in love resonates across the whole of creation. The age of light does not abolish mystery, it sanctifies it, revealing that truth and beauty were never apart. What was once hidden beneath symbols and prophecy becomes visible not through destruction, but through clarity. The light reveals the true nature of everything, not to condemn, but to complete. Those who feared judgment discover mercy instead, for truth purifies rather than punishes. Humanity sees that it was never abandoned, only invited to mature, to awaken, to remember. The seals of the book are no longer barriers but milestones, each marking a step toward transformation. The revelation once sealed until the end of days becomes the beginning of eternal day. Every corner of creation echoes with renewal. The elements sing in harmony, the earth breathes without burden, and time feels weightless beneath the radiance of peace. The struggle between light and shadow no longer defines existence, for truth reigns without opposition. The great mystery that once seemed too vast to understand now dwells within the heart of every living being, quiet yet undeniable. Humanity, restored to its divine likeness, walks once more in the presence of the Creator, not as servant or stranger, but as companion in the eternal dance of love. Light continues to expand without boundary, touching all dimensions of life seen and unseen. What began as whisper grew into voice, then into revelation, now becomes the living breath of creation. Every tear that once fell in sorrow now reflects light like a jewel. Every scar becomes a testament of endurance redeemed. The Book of Truth, once sealed and guarded, now lies open across the soul of humanity. What was written from the beginning has come to life, not as mere words, but as the living reality of a world reborn in truth. The journey through these revelations reminds us that truth has always been closer than we imagined, waiting patiently for hearts to listen. Every chapter of awakening, every trial of discernment, every moment of purification leads to the same destination, the rediscovery of divine light within and around us. The age of unveiling is not far away. It begins in each soul that chooses honesty, love and faith over fear and illusion. Let these words guide your reflection and your hope, for the Book of Truth is not finished. It continues to unfold through every life that chooses to live in light. If this message touched your heart, remember to subscribe to the channel so you can join us in future reflections about faith and revelation. Like this video if it inspired you, and let your thoughts flow in the comments below. Your perspective may help someone else on their own journey toward truth. And most importantly, share this video with your family and friends so that together we may spread understanding, light, and hope across the world.